Imagine running into almost 4 out of every 10 people, and they tell you.
Wow.
They're just depending on their tax refund to cover basic expenses.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's the reality for a lot of Americans right now as we're entering the 2025 tax filing season, and it's all happening as the Trump administration has those tariffs in place on goods from Canada, Mexico, China.
Makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like with so many relying on that refund check.
Right.
Is the system even working as it should?
Yeah, that's a good question. And before we dive in any deeper, I just want to say if you like what you hear and you want more of this kind of economic analysis, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's get back to those tariffs, because the administration's claiming that they'll generate revenue for tax cuts.
Right.
But could this just lead to higher prices for everyone?
It's definitely possible. The logic is that by tacking on those tariffs to imports, the government gets more money.
Right.
And then they can use that to fund the tax cuts. But the risk is that those added costs just get passed down the line.
Right.
And then they're reflected in what consumers see.
So then we're potentially looking at this ripple effect. Increased prices, not just on those imported goods.
Exactly.
But on everyday essentials like groceries, gas, maybe even housing.
That's the worry.
Yeah.
It's what economists like to call
here we go.
Transitory inflation. And
I love these terms.
Think of it like this. A sudden frost just wipes out a huge chunk of the orange crop.
Right.
All of a sudden, orange juice prices go way up because the supply is low, but everybody still wants their OJ.
Of course.
That's what transitory or temporary inflation is.
Okay, so how temporary are we talking with these tariffs?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and for those families already stretching every dollar, how much of a price hike are we talking?
Those are the $1 million questions, you know? If you're on a tight budget, even just a little increase can have a huge impact.
Right.
And that takes us back to those tax refunds. The Credit Karma survey found that 37% of taxpayers are relying on their refund to get by.
That's over a third of taxpayers.
I know, it's a lot.
What's the average refund amount these days?
A little over $3,000.
Wow. Yeah. And for many, that's rent, utilities, groceries, the essentials.
It is.
So knowing that so many people are relying on this money, I'm going to throw this out to our listeners.
Okay.
Would you spend your tax refund right away? Or knowing that these prices could be going up, would you save it as a buffer?
Yeah.
Let us know down in the comments.
Yeah.
And hey, if you're enjoying this discussion and you're finding it helpful, hit that like button.
Yeah.
It really helps others find this kind of information.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a big question to think about.
It is.
We're in uncharted territory right now, and having some extra money could make all the difference, especially since we're not sure what the administration will do next, right? Are these tariffs really temporary, like they say? Will we actually see lower taxes in the long run?
It's hard to know for sure.
It really is.
It does feel like a huge game of economic Jenga.
Yeah.
One wrong move and the whole thing could collapse.
Yeah.
But let's say, for the sake of argument, that these tariffs are temporary.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential downsides we need to be ready for in the short term?
Well, like we've been talking about, inflation is the main worry.
Right.
When businesses have to pay more because of the tariffs, those costs usually end up impacting consumers in the form of higher prices for, well, everything. And I don't mean just a few cents here and there.
So how bad could it get?
Yeah.
Could we see prices jump on everyday things? What are we talking about here?
You know, it's really tough to say for sure, but we could definitely see increases on groceries. Gas, clothes, transportation, even housing, and all those little increases, they can really add up, and that can put a strain on people's budgets, especially if they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it brings us back to that Credit Karma survey. More than a third of taxpayers are using their refunds to cover basic needs.
Yeah.
What happens if those refunds don't go as far?
Right.
Because of these rising prices?
That's when things get really tough, right?
Yeah.
People might have to start making really difficult decisions, like cutting back on essentials, maybe using their savings, or even taking on more debt.
Wow, that's not a good situation.
It's not. It's something we have to pay attention to.
It is, and there's also the possibility of delays with those refunds.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which could make things even worse.
It could, and that IRS hiring freeze, even though it was supposed to make things more efficient, it could cause some backlogs.
Yeah.
Especially for those returns that need to be reviewed manually.
Yeah.
So some people might end up waiting even longer.
And for those who are counting on that money to pay bills or cover unexpected costs, that wait can be excruciating.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a tough situation for sure.
That doesn't sound good, does it?
Well, it's not all bad news.
Okay.
You know, the economy is always changing.
Right.
And there are ways to adapt.
Okay, so what can people do? How can they deal with all this economic uncertainty and protect themselves financially?
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of tough stuff.
We have.
Millions of people waiting on tax refunds.
Right.
That could be delayed. And then when they do get them, the money might not go as far.
Yeah.
Because prices are going up thanks to these tariffs.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
It really is. It can be a little overwhelming, to be honest.
Definitely. But you know what they say? Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The first step is just understanding what's happening.
Right.
And I think we've done a good job explaining that today.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now let's talk about what we can do about it.
Okay, so what can our listeners actually do?
Yeah.
What's some advice they can use? What's a good place to start?
Well, if you're one of the many who needs that tax refund,
one of the best things you can do is just file as early as you can. That way you're ahead of the game.
Right.
And if there are any delays, they won't affect you as much.
Makes sense. The early bird gets the refund.
Exactly.
What else?
Well, with all these potential price hikes, creating a budget and sticking to it is super important.
Yeah.
It's more important now than ever.
Okay.
Look for ways to cut back.
Right.
Even if it's just little things, every bit helps.
It all adds up. That's practical advice.
It is.
And probably a good idea regardless
definitely.
of all the uncertainty in the economy.
Right.
Any other tips?
This one might seem obvious, but it's worth saying again.
Okay.
Try to save as much as you can.
Okay.
Having some savings
Right.
can give you some peace of mind.
Yeah.
And it can be a safety net if those price increases really hit hard.
So be prepared, be proactive,
Yeah,
and don't be afraid to make changes as you need to.
exactly. It's all about adapting to this new economic situation. Exactly. And remember, we're all in this together.
We are.
Don't be afraid to reach out to a financial expert
Right.
or look for resources in your community.
There are people who can help.
Absolutely great advice.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot today.
We have.
Tariffs, inflation tax refund, worries.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but I think the most important thing is just to be aware. Understand what could happen, good and bad.
Right.
So you can make good decisions for yourself financially.
Absolutely. Stay informed.
Yes.
Stay adaptable. And like we always say, keep asking those important questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And hey, if you found this conversation helpful,
Yeah.
go ahead and hit that like button.
Yeah.
And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our deep dives in the future.
Until next time.
Stay curious.